Hi, my name is Beatrice, joining you today from Fortinet Technologies. I manage our FortiVoice solution, and today we're going to be doing a comprehensive review of our FortiVoice. Many of you will know Fortinet as being a leader in network security with our FortiGate product line, but we also do specialize in a number of other products. And obviously today we're reviewing our FortiVoice. Joining me today is our colleagues at BlackHawk Data, as well as some of my other colleagues from Fortinet. I'll let them introduce themselves.
Hey, hi everyone. My name is Sam Okoyemi, VP Collaboration here at BlackHawk Data. I'm here to discuss the Fortinet FortiVoice UC solution with the team, and I hope you enjoyed the whole webinar.
Hi, and I'm Veronica Izaguirre. I'm from Fortinet, part of the FortiVoice team, and I'm the systems engineer, and we'll be providing the technical overview.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jason Caparoso, CTO here at BlackHawk Data. We're very excited to have Fortinet with us here today to go through our FortiVoice solution. For those of you that don't know BlackHawk Data, I'm hoping all of you do, but if you don't, we are a technology integrator. We are customer focused on the solution and what we provide to you based around services and hardware. We make sure that the right fit is for your business, not just for anybody else's needs. You can always learn more about us in some of our other presentations or probably at the end of this webinar. So we'll get started. Phil, tell us what we're going to learn today about FortiVoice.
Awesome. So yeah, we have an agenda that we've put together. So we're going to basically do a high-level overview of the FortiVoice product line that Sam and I are going to tackle, as well as an in-depth technical demo of the actual system itself. So through that, we'll actually review the back end of the platform, both from an end user and administrative perspective. And of course, if there's any questions, feel free to add them to our chat, and we'll definitely have a component at the end to review those in depth. That being said, Sam, maybe you can kind of tell us why BlackHawk has selected FortiVoice as a product to have in your guys' portfolio, and some of the kind of mission critical reasons as to why our solution is very attractive.
Yeah, and that's very interesting. So one of the primary things that we look at is why would a customer be considering a new platform, a new UC solution, right? And a lot of customers out there, they've had their current system maybe 5 years, 6 years, so they're pretty much end of life. And then what they are now faced with is the expensive license to renew, the cost and all that kind of thing, the hardware, the new requirement that comes into play. And also a lot of customers are looking to migrate to the cloud, right? And one of the most interesting things that we find out in the course of doing all this research is actually the fact that a lot of customers that are actually already in the cloud, they are finding out that UCaaS solution is actually not as affordable as everybody assumed in the first place. And one of the more common one these days is because of the work from home solution thing. So because everybody is working from home, all customer or enterprise, they are now bent on providing solution for their remote workforce. And just one more thing, Phil. So there may be need for new features, call recording, all those other things that are not natively available in most of the solution out there. So these are some of the things we see out there today. So back to you, Phil.
Awesome. So what we'll do now is move to more of an in-depth review of the FortiVoice itself. So what is FortiVoice? As I mentioned before, this is our homegrown unified communication platform engineered by Fortinet. And there's definitely some unique aspects to the FortiVoice platform. There's essentially three pillars of the overall solution. At its core is the FortiVoice instance, the FortiVoice brain, if you will. So this can be available in multiple form factors. It can be available as a UCaaS offering hosted through our partners at BlackHawk, or available as an on-premise solution, or essentially a hybrid of the two. So from an architectural and deployment topology perspective, it's very flexible. The underlying operating system of FortiVoice utilizes FortiOS, which is the same platform we utilize on our FortiGate solution, our claim to fame on the firewall side. The reason I bring that up as being particularly relevant is it essentially copies the same business model we utilize on the FortiGate. So from a feature set perspective, everything is embedded within the core FortiVoice solution, and it's really up to our end users to kind of pick and choose what features and what functionalities are important to them, which they then have full access to. It's a very minimalistic, if any, licenses that are required, and for the most part, it's fairly turnkey. The second component would be our FortiPhones, the actual endpoints. So a wide variety of physical endpoints that are available, as well as our soft client platform, which is available on your typical ecosystems, whether they be mobile or whether they be desktop driven. The last component is our FortiCall, which is our SIP trunking service. So we actually provide full PSTN access. So again, this whole solution is really designed as a one throat to choke, fully encompassed UCaaS offering. From a FortiVoice standpoint, there's also the cost benefit analysis. Given that the platform is structured in the same type of model that we utilize on our firewall solution, all the costs, as I mentioned, are fully embedded. So there's really no surprises if you're coming from a legacy on-premise solution, i.e. Cisco, i.e. Avaya, which typically have significant renewal costs, both in terms of support and features. Our solution is much more transparent in that regard. The solution itself is also flexible from a deployment standpoint. It can be cloud hosted, but we also have multiple options available from a redundancy perspective, which also extends to the actual edge. So we have a series of survivable proxies that basically act as a gateway with redundant PSTN resources, which basically allow us to mitigate any threat of ISP or internet circuit failure, and still providing full telephony services at those individual sites. So for mission critical use cases, this is something that is very attractive, and again, also fully embedded as a turnkey offering. In terms of the solution itself, given that we are Fortinet, it is obviously designed from a security-first perspective. The solution itself has an actual embedded session border controller, which basically allows us to regulate all incoming and external SIP traffic. We've also enabled a full DDoS firewall at the head end of the FortiVoice cloud instance, which will basically identify any type of malicious attempts or bad actors trying to gain access to the platform, and of course, initiate an IP blacklist of that user. The solution is also fully embedded with our FortiToken product for multi-factor authentication. So if there is need to have that additional layer of login security, again, fully supported within our platform. We also do support full Active Directory integration via LDAP, Radius, and SAML. The solution is also very much geared around our SD-WAN architecture. So if there's a scenario where we're looking at WAN-based redundancy, Fortinet does have a fully supported SD-WAN product, which is essentially automated with FortiVoice, which basically allows for WAN-based redundancy if there's ever any issue with one of our primary incoming or outgoing ISP circuits. So again, very much designed with redundancy and security in mind. The FortiVoice endpoints also have additional layers of security, which are kind of unique compared to some of our competitors. Each FortiPhone has a dedicated SSL certificate that's validated at the actual FortiVoice cloud level, meaning that no rogue device can ever connect to the FortiVoice instance. We also do support SSL tunneling from the actual FortiPhone level. So if SSL encryption is required, it is supported to every one of our endpoints. We also do support TLS 1.3 and secure RTP. We're HIPAA compliant, we're PCI compliant, and of course, things like E911 fully supported as well. From a integration perspective, as I mentioned before, the solution is fully integrated, both in terms of existing Fortinet ecosystems as well as third-party ecosystems. So this doesn't necessarily have to exist within an all Fortinet environment. If there's existing switching infrastructure that's in place, we can absolutely work with that as well. The solution itself is also very flexible. So again, as I mentioned before, we can basically customize the deployment and the architecture based on whatever type of scenario we engage with. And from a affordability perspective, the solution is very, very cost attractive to our customers. It is very much designed as a disruptor, as is Fortinet as a whole, and that definitely has been propagated to our end users. From a feature set perspective, the solution is very, very feature rich. And I'm not going to go through all of these in detail because Veronica will obviously give us an in-depth demo of how the features are enabled. But everything you'd expect from a telephony product is essentially embedded within the solution. Things like auto attendance, things like unified messaging, voicemail to email are all built into the platform. Call recording is also supported. That can be provisioned to specific extensions or specific hunt groups, and then that's stored on the FortiVoice instance. We also have the ability to integrate with a NAS. So if there's long-term archiving that's required on the from a voice perspective, that can be pointed to an iSCSI or NFS instance and essentially archived for as long as need be. So again, very flexible from an archiving and recording standpoint. We do support full video calling as well as full conference functionalities. E911 is fully embedded within the solution as well. We're fully compliant for things like Kerry's Law, for things like EBOMS Act. We also have a full emergency mass notification platform that's built into the solution, meaning that if there's ever any type of catastrophic event that may be taking place, say a lockdown scenario, the FortiVoice actually has the logic to broadcast that event out in real time, either as an overhead audio broadcast through the phones or through a PA system, as well as sending out an actual SMS to the endpoints. So from an emergency perspective, the solution is very, very robust. There's also a fully embedded T38 fax server. So each FortiVoice extension has the capability of being a fax endpoint, and that's accessible through either the soft client or through the user portal. But this also potentially could displace any type of legacy fax infrastructure. That being said, if there is need to maintain existing legacy fax endpoints, those can still be interconnected back to the FortiVoice instance through one of our ATAs. And again, Veronica will go through this in depth. We also do support a full REST API. So if there's any type of integration needed to third-party products, it is fully embedded within the platform. From a deployment topology perspective, the solution is fairly straightforward. And again, this is just one of many possible examples, but typically one of the more popular options that we see. From a kind of core FortiVoice standpoint, generally speaking, we could deploy this in a cloud-based instance. And again, our partners at BlackHawk actually have this as a fully managed service, meaning that this is actually hosted and managed within their data center infrastructure. This, of course, can also be leveraged as something that exists within your instance. So if we wanted this to be in your co-location, if we wanted it to be in AWS and Azure and Google Cloud, all of those are fully supported. The FortiVoice configuration itself is fairly straightforward. The phones can be registered directly through our ISP to the FortiVoice instance. And again, that can also be encrypted via TLS as well as SSL. So again, lots of options from hardening of those actual endpoints. In terms of brick and mortar physical locations, those are connected in a similar fashion. If it is a scenario where we're utilizing SD-WAN, FortiVoice is essentially automated through the Fortinet SD-WAN product, meaning that the FortiGate has the actual ability to detect FortiPhones and then apply automation and QoS through the SD-WAN interface. What's nice about this is if we are using multiple ISP links, the FortiVoice traffic will basically be replicated from one link to another, meaning if there's one ISP failure, we'll basically carry that traffic to the secondary instance. So again, meant to be very, very redundant, really regardless of what the overall topology and infrastructure looks like. In terms of the FortiVoice platform itself, it's very, very scalable. As we can see here, it's based on overall extension capacity and kind of a similar model to what we do with our other products. Typically, there's certain metrics that are utilized to determine which layer makes sense. And based around that, we would obviously recommend that specific instance. The FortiVoice platform scales between 100 to 50,000 total extensions. So again, lots of flexibility in terms of how many users can be added to the platform. And as I mentioned before, the SBC is essentially embedded into the FortiVoice. So SIP trunks will terminate natively. If we're utilizing our FortiCall service, it's essentially an automated policy. If we're using a third-party SIP trunk, that can also be registered via IP. SIP sessions would also dictate the total concurrent call capacity. So in some scenarios, SIP sessions may dictate the overall layer. Most of the time, it is the overall extension capacity. And as I mentioned before, this is fully hybrid. So it can be fully cloud hosted, it can be hardware-based, or it can exist on an on-site hypervisor. We're also hypervisor platform agnostic. So we can host in AWS, or not AWS, in VMware, in Hyper-V, in Linux and Citrix. Again, lots of flexibility, as well as full support for public cloud. The FortiVoice soft client is obviously our soft endpoint. This is available on pretty much whatever platform we want to take advantage of. So this can be applied to iOS, to Android, to Mac, to Windows, to Linux. Again, gives us a lot of option. This can also be coexisting with a physical extension. You can actually have up to 9 endpoints registered to one core extension, meaning that if you're extension 123, you can have your physical office phone, a physical home office phone, a desktop client, a mobile client, and your extension basically exists on all of those simultaneously. What you do on one is reflected on the other, and those act as one unified instance. The FortiVoice platform is also fully integrated into Microsoft Teams as well. So for anybody out there taking advantage of Office 365, this basically acts as a fully integrated application. And Office 365 essentially becomes the mission control platform for anything related back to the FortiVoice from an end user standpoint. So definitely, for those of you who are taking advantage of that Office 365 environment, we would definitely encourage full integration. In terms of integrations, as I mentioned, Microsoft Teams fully supported. We also do full integration with Salesforce as well through our contact center functionality. What that basically allows us to do is automate things like CDR records from the FortiVoice back to the Salesforce core database, as well as things like screen popping functionality, and just acts as one unified instance. We do support full integration with SIP, obviously, and we are carrier agnostic. It really comes down to the SIP codecs, and we're pretty much universal in terms of what we can accept. So if it's a scenario where we want to maintain a relationship with an AT&T or a Verizon or CenturyLink or whatever, we can definitely incorporate their SIP services into our platform. We also support full integration with legacy devices as well. So if there's a need to have something like an overhead PA system or legacy fax machine or door phone, we do have a series of interface gateways that allow for that full functionality. And then, as I mentioned before, we do support a standard of open APIs, typically utilizing the RESTful standard. That basically allows for us to integrate into pretty much whatever type of platform, whether it be for things like screen recording or whether it be for things like omni-channel emergency mass notification. Gives us a lot of flexibility. Fortinet is very much an engineering company. That being said, we're very keen to do integrations with whatever types of products our customers request. So definitely, if that's something that's mission critical, let us know, and we're happy to explore those types of scenarios. My last slide here before we turn it back to Sam is just the actual endpoints. So in terms of the physical hardware, we have a wide variety of actual endpoints that can be set up. Typically, something like the 175 would be our entry-level kind of common room phone. A number of phones for your typical office workers, something like the 375 or the 475. A number of phones for the kind of executive class of user, as well as a fully dedicated UCAS phone. So if we did need to enable full video calling or actually have Microsoft Teams or Zoom exist on one of the actual endpoints, that is definitely something we can do. A couple of wireless options, conference units, and a full receptionist handset. And the phones are fairly reasonably priced. They start at about $100 MSRP and go to about $400. And again, there are no extension licenses on our platform. So again, typically we have a significant TCO advantage. That being said, let's maybe turn it back to Sam, and he can kind of tell us why some of his customers are looking at our solution and some of those success stories.
Yeah, thank you so much, Phil. Yeah, it was really great for you to go through all that. Those are great pictures, by the way. Yeah. And so what we've seen with customers that have actually had the FortiVoice solution and they've been using it. I mean, one of the K12 customer was saying, hey, you know what, even after we put in the solution, we needed additional feature to be customized to fit the environment. Fortinet team, they are really on top of all these features. They don't leave the customer out. We know a lot of vendor, it takes a lot of time to get features in. With Fortinet, I mean, one thing I really enjoy about it is the fact that they can really bring these features to the table pretty quick. And one of the other things from some of the other customers in the healthcare industry is the fact that it's easy to budget with Fortinet solution, right? With FortiVoice platform, by the time you compare your TCO with other solutions, you'll be so amazed how much cost saving you'll be having. And there's no changes in what it costs you maybe this month from next month and all that kind of thing. So it's really, really helped the CTO, the CIO to really plan out their budget very well. And one of the schools in North Carolina that actually went on FortiVoice, they really enjoyed the platform. and it really helped them even when they started with one of the schools, and then they expanded it to the entire school district. And even on the BlackHawk data side, we've actually helped a lot of customers to evaluate different solutions. I mean, I'm talking about 10 different solutions. And one of the things we find out is the fact that FortiVoice solution actually come on top. And that's the joy and the happiness we see from some of those managers that we work with. And lastly, to put this in the right perspective, this Fortinet solution as their other solution, they actually help customers to save a lot of money. Again, it's really hard to not overemphasize the fact that the Fortinet solution, FortiVoice, actually saves a lot of money compared to any other solution out there. So it's a really great platform. I've been doing this over 20 years across different platforms. So to me, it's kind of a shock that there's great product out there that is very affordable to environment. And so with those being said, I'll pass it over to Veronica to go over the demo. Thank you so much, Veronica.
All right, now let's move over to the technical overview. Let me share my screen. Perfect. All right, so this is the FortiVoice management interface that we're looking at. So we're seeing the dashboard here. This is where you can retrieve a lot of system information. You can see the firmware version, do a backup of the config. You have visibility to the system resources and licensing information that you may want to upload, let's say, to support soft clients, like for the mobile app or desktop clients. Next, jumping to the extensions. Extensions could be manually set up, or you can upload a CSV file with all the critical extension information. Once that's populated, you'll see those extensions listed here. And then it's just a matter of connecting the handsets on the network to go through the auto provisioning process. So once it's registered, you actually will see the icon turn from red to green. And if you mouse over, you can see the date and timestamp. Just going into the extension settings really quick here, it's also where you'll be able to upload or allocate the number of soft client licenses you want to provide for a given extension. So there's 2 licenses allocated here, which could be used for the mobile app and the desktop client. And you can, again, see the status of those soft clients by mousing over the status icon. And you can easily revoke the license. So, an employee who may be leaving, revoke the license, so then it frees it up to apply it to somebody different. Moving into, actually, before I move into the trunks, the other piece I wanted to also mention is there's user privilege profiles that you can apply for each of the extensions. Basically, this is your class of service, which would dictate the features and settings you want to allow or restrict for users. One of those features is related to the web-based user portal, which is this right here. So they would just simply log in into the appropriate /voice URL, log in with their local authentication, or it could be their LDAP authentication. So we can tie in with sync up with the LDAP database like Active Directory. And then from here, the user would have visibility based on the privileges provided to view information such as their personal call history. They could download this as a CSV file. They could filter the disposition. They could double click on an entry to view call information, detail information. And if we scroll down, they could also see the call from start to end. So in this case here, the call came in on a SIP trunk. It hit the welcome greeting. The user dialed extension 3012. There was no answer at the extension, so it was routed to the user's mailbox where a message was left. So easy to read and understand, and could also be used as a troubleshooting tool. Next would be voicemail. So every extension you set up on the system will come with its own personal mailbox. It does support voicemail to email notifications, so we can add the email address as part of that upload of the CSV file. From the user portal, you have visual voicemail that's available. So you can engage playback by clicking on the play button. You can even delete this voicemail, download it, or maybe forward it off to a different individual. Next, we're moving over to contacts. So contacts you have three different types here. You have visibility and access to the company or corporate directory. You have this little icon here for click to call, which would engage then your desk phone to make the call out. There is business contacts, which would be managed by the system administrator, that again, you can easily engage click to call. And then there's the personal contact. So the personal contact feature allows the user to generate their own contact list. They could specify, which ones are their favorites. They can add it to a speed dial or add it to their personal block list. The personal block list is something that the user can also generate themselves. So essentially, any matching caller ID that is found in this personal block list that's attempting to reach that user extension, by default, the system will disconnect the call. There are other advanced features that are available. So we have the ability to provide a privilege for users to record their own personal calls. Similar to the voicemail, they'll be able to engage playback, deletes for the call to somebody else, or even download it as a backup file. Another advanced privilege would be the ability for the users to manage their own call cascade settings. So whether their extension is, if there's no answer, or if there's no answer, or if it's busy, or if they have do not disturb on, they can change the call handling process. So by default, it's already predefined the system to route to the personal mailbox. But here they could switch it over to user defined and choose a different action, like engaging follow me or call forwarding. And these actions could be different based on the scheduling, like business hours versus after hours. It could also be based on where the call is stemming from, internal calls versus external calls. And the last item here I wanted to touch on is the ability for users to manage the programming of their own phone keys. So they just simply choose the function in the drop-down list, like intercom paging to another extension, or extension appearance if they want to monitor someone else's extension, and also use that as one-touch dialing to reach that specific individual. Next, we'll move over to the trunks. So SIP trunks is what we primarily see with the majority of customers. It's just a matter of generating a SIP profile with the account information. So we can work with any third-party SIP provider. So like I said, it's just a matter of adding the account information, the account credentials. Once that's populated, then we're looking for that account to go into service. Once it's in service, then we can go ahead and configure the call routing rules. If we're needing to interface with analog trunk like PSTN trunks or PRI trunks, we can. We do have dedicated trunking gateways for our analog trunks, as well as for the PRI trunks, which could be centrally managed by the core FortiVoice system. So it's just a matter of generating a profile for those particular devices, then configuring the call, not the call handling, but the call routing or dial plan rules. So dial plan rules obviously would control, is how we would tell the system how to handle an incoming call versus an outgoing call. Outgoing calls would be based on the number pattern specified. So whether there's a prefix required today, whether it's 9 or 8, or if there's no prefix required, if it's 10-digit dialing versus 11-digit dialing, we can mirror that same setup. Then it's just a matter of choosing the trunk profile and then applying the schedule that we want to implement to process the outgoing phone call. Incoming calls, it's very similar in that you would choose a trunk profile and then configure the call handling, where in this example here, it's routed to my welcome greeting at the auto attendant level, but this could be routed to a different resource like a ring group or extension number, or maybe directly to voicemail. Going into the call feature set, let's look at the auto attendants next. So you can configure various auto attendants, welcome greeting, close greeting. The greetings themselves, we can either upload a WAV file, or we could choose select somebody to make a recording. So when I hit send, it rings the individual's phone. They pick up the handset and follow the prompts to do the recording. Once that's completed, then you have the ability to engage playback and even download that as a backup file. And then it's just a matter of completing the setup by configuring the caller options, where you would just simply choose the key that would be pressed, and then selecting the resource action. So we have options here like the built-in lookup name directory, as well as the ability to branch out to different auto attendants, which is ideal if you want custom auto attendant greetings for maybe different departments. On top of that, we can change the language based on caller selection. So these are the built-in language prompts available with FortiVoice. We can even change the music on hold based on caller selection. Next is the call recording. So I had mentioned previously at the extension level where we could set up call recording as a privilege for users, and then we just simply record a button on their phone for one-touch access to engage or disengage the call recording. From an admin standpoint, you can set up various call recording policies. Once this is implemented, then it becomes automated. We can record calls based on a phone number, department, user group, trunk type, or call queue. In this example here, I have it set to record all calls based on a phone number, and it's also based on the number pattern selected. Accessing the call recordings, you can click on View Recordings at the top here, which will take you directly to the monitor section into the storage. So these are all the various folders containing the call recordings, which you could easily access and again engage in playback or even downloading the file. If there's a recording that you want to select, or sorry, to locate, we do have a built-in search utility. Call recordings could also be accessed from the global call history. The last column here, would show the recorded calls, and you can identify those easily by looking at the green check mark. So you can just simply click on that again to engage playback. Next, I'll move over to our fax feature. So FortiVoice has a built-in T38 fax server. So we actually can replace traditional analog fax machines with our fax feature. It's just a matter of creating the fax account, configuring the fax DID. Then we can either relay the fax by email, where the fax would be attached as a PDF document, or we could choose a fax monitor or monitors. In that situation, then, if we go back to the user portal, that's how they would be monitoring the incoming faxes. So they'll see the entry here with the date and timestamp and the document that they could download. It's also from here where they'd be able to relay a outgoing fax. So they just simply populate the phone number and upload the attachment in PDF or JPEG format. All right, let's return back to the monitor section here. So from the monitor section, we can monitor all of the various extension resources that have been set up, whether it's applied to the IP phones, general voicemail boxes, or any of the trunking gateways. We can also see the status of the phones, whether they've been assigned an extension number or if they're waiting to be assigned an extension number. We could also monitor, let's say, the soft clients as well. Under the monitor section, so I touched on this not too long ago, would be the call history. So this is keeps a record of all the call detail transactions that have occurred. By default, the system will retain 2 years or 200,000 lines of data, but that is a metric that can be adjusted. You can download all of the CDR records as a CSV file. You can filter the disposition, and similar to what I was showing from the user portal, double-click on the entry to view the call flow from beginning to end. From the call history, we can actually generate call reports. So the FortiVoice system does have built-in reports. So here's just an example of an extension detail report with a breakdown of 3 extensions and the calls that were made from each one. So we could see the breakdown, we could see the date and timestamp, the type of call that was made, whether it was incoming or outgoing, what trunk was accessed, the caller ID information, as well as the call duration. And in the last line, we'll see the total number of calls made and the made or received and the total call duration. Now, the call reports are all generated within FortiVoice. So it's just a matter of choosing and selecting the query that you want. So we have various canned reports here. So you can have run a query based on call usage, trunk usage, concurrent calls, extension reports. So you have various subcategories that you can choose from. So the detailed report is what I had shown earlier. There's a number search report, even a top 30, so top 30 numbers dialed and longest calls. So whatever query you choose, you can then specify the time period on when you want to extract the data. Then that report could be emailed out up to 5 recipients. This could be seen in and received as HTML, PDF, or CSV files, zipped or unzipped. There's also we could set a schedule on when you want to receive the reports, whether it's on a daily basis, maybe select weekdays like Fridays or Mondays, or maybe select calendar dates. Other features that are available with FortiVoice is the security portion. So we can either populate a global block number list. There's intrusion detection that could also be implemented, which is ideal for monitoring any bad actors that is trying to communicate with the FortiVoice system, and that could be monitored through and tracked through CLI, web, or SIP. So if any anomalies are detected from an IP address, then those would show up under the monitor section under the security. So that IP would automatically get blocked. If it's a valid IP, you would have the capability to add that to an exempt list. And then the last piece from an admin standpoint would be the admin alerts. So we can notify you by email of anything that's going on with the FortiVoice system. If it's related to the hard disk, there is redundancy available, like high availability. We can keep track of anything that may be going on with the various trunks, PRI, FXO, or even SIP. So let's say the SIP provider, they're experiencing a service outage. An email could be alerted and sent to you right away so that you can take action. And that concludes the overview. So now next will be going through the Q&A portion.
Awesome, thanks, Veronica. So if we have any questions, we're absolutely happy to answer those.
Yeah, if anybody is actually watching right now, so we have some giveaway from the Q&A session. So we encourage customers and attendees to please ask their questions across. And before I forget, Veronica, thank you so much for really going into the details. So it's really helpful.
Yep, not a problem.
Yeah. So one of the things I really enjoyed about the solution is the embedded call recording solution, and the fact that you can actually port the device. The solution is really portable, meaning you can put it in AWS, and you're not comfortable in AWS, you want to move it back on-prem. It doesn't take much. You don't have to re-engineer the entire use environment. And it's really an interesting platform.
Absolutely. We did have a question around remote workers. So if there's a scenario where people aren't returning to work anytime soon, potentially, what does that look like? And I kind of addressed that earlier with the soft phone functionality. But with our solution, we have the ability to basically have users peer off the FortiVoice from wherever they are globally. So again, it just really comes down to how we're kind of hosting the FortiVoice instance and basically just allowing for those external users to connect to it. Outside of that, it's a very simplistic instance. So it's very common in this day and age that people have a physical headset, their soft clients, and that basically is able to be utilized wherever they are physically.
Okay, that's good. I think we have one other question. Can the product integrate into other contact center platform? Yeah, absolutely. And so this is actually one of the major thing with the FortiVoice platform, because in considering it for one of our customer, so it was actually one of the number one criteria for the platform. Because when you're integrating with a call center platform, obviously you want to make sure that the names and everything get carried over. So yes, our FortiVoice platform integrate well with other call center solutions. So meaning if you run a huge call center, you can have your call center could be anything, and your phone system can be FortiVoice. So it does do work together. So I hope that answers your question.
Absolutely. And Sam, just to kind of touch on that as well, like I said before, whether it's call center or other platforms, we're very keen from an integration standpoint. So
Yeah.
definitely, if there's anything outside of that, just let us know and we're happy to explore it.
Yeah, female, I don't know, maybe you can take this one. So how can FortiVoice solution be optimized over SD-WAN? I know you spoke about it before.
Yeah, so basically, if we're utilizing the FortiGate SD-WAN feature, that there's essentially automation from a FortiVoice perspective. So FortiGate basically has the ability to identify the FortiPhones essentially in real time, and then through the FortiGate interface, we can automate that utilizing the SD-WAN. So really, the only prerequisite is that the SD-WAN is basically turned on. Utilizing that method. It applies QoS, so it allows us to prioritize the VoIP traffic over those SD-WAN circuits, as well as if ever there's an ISP failure on one of those circuits, the FortiVoice can basically be replicated to the secondary circuit, and that actually enables full redundancy, even if that failure happens while you're on a call. So those packets are basically preserved and moved over from link to link. So it's again very redundant from an SD-WAN perspective. SD-WAN isn't a prerequisite, but if it's there, it really does help from a QoS and the quality of service perspective.
Thank you for that. And I think one of the other thing we have discussed before is how existing customer that already have Fortinet SD-WAN solution, how they can take an advantage of that already existing investment in having a FortiVoice on top of that SD-WAN platform. Yeah, I think we have another question here. Can Fortinet solution help me stabilize or better forecast my spending on voice solution?
Yeah, I can answer that one. It kind of goes back to the whole kind of disruptor type of business model we have. But given that the solution is all encompassing and can be positioned even as a CapEx offering, I would say on average, our cost versus, say, a Cisco or a Mitel or something more traditional in that sense is somewhere between a third to a fifth of what that overall cost looks like. And it's just because we have a very simplistic model. The fact that we are able to utilize the same model we use for all of our other products at Fortinet is really a net benefactor to anybody in the UCaaS or telephony space. It's done in a very different model, and the byproduct of that is direct savings to our customers.
Thank you for that. And just to add to that, Phil, so one of the things we do for our customers is actually to look at all these different platforms independently with our buyers. And again, we've come a very long way to realize that the FortiVoice solution just costs a lot less than all these other solutions out there. Okay. So I don't know, Jason, you have anything to add? I know. Look at what to make sure everything works so well with the SD-WAN solution. So
No, I mean, it's, I think, it's a great job there. And, if you're looking to learn more about the FortiVoice solution or get a proof of concept or anything else, and also remember, if you're watching this, that there's a registration link on our website if you want to win a free FortiGate FG60F, it looks like. So I think we're announcing the winner on that on Friday, which I think was already mentioned, but just reminding people, sign up, win a FortiGate. They're a great box. I have one at my house. I'm using it right now. It's fantastic. Yeah, no, and if anybody needs any information on the FortiVoice or any other Fortinet solution, we'd be happy to help you. And enjoy the rest of your day. And we'll see you next time.
thank you.
Thanks so much.